Welcome to The Horticulturalists.
And hello everybody.
We post every week, so do hit subscribe and hit the bell if you want to hear from us every week, and I know you want to. Mr. Ryan, what is the journey today?
Well, today we're going to look at a bizarre plant that is in one of my national collections.
Two things. Bizarre, that sounds intriguing, but
Yeah.
one of your national collections?
Yes, I hold 3 collections in the garden here and 1 at my nursery for Plant Trust, which is the Australian body that registers and documents plant collections.
How interesting. We'll put the link to the Plant Trust of Australia below so you can have a look. Well, without any further ado, you must lead on and take me to this bizarre plant that is part of one of your national collections.
Indeed I will. Let's go.
Off we go.
Now we could be in Northeast Africa.
Hark! The crazy birds of Northeast Africa. We're not though, Mr. Ryan.
No.
We are in your garden, but I can actually smell coffee, so we could be in Ethiopia.
Yes.
Why am I smelling coffee?
That's because I've been using it as a mulch or as part of a mulch. I get it from the local cafe, waste not, want not.
Yeah.
So it becomes a really good mulch. So there you
Does
go.
it?
Yeah.
Is it true that it repels things like slugs and snails?
So they say, but I haven't noticed any particular difference. And the only thing is, if you're going to use coffee as a additive to your soil, make sure you don't put it down as a thick layer because it will actually repel water if it's a thick layer.
Aha.
So be aware.
A gentle sprinkle. Well,
Yep.
so that explains the coffee. So here we are. Here is our extraordinary plant.
Yep.
Very spiky leaves.
Yeah.
Tell me everything.
All right. Well, it's an acanthus, and it doesn't look like one.
No, because this has got to be, how tall would you
Well,
say?
it's well over 3 metres tall, sort of 9 to 10 feet.
9 to 10 feet.
Yeah.
So I would assume the acanthus is the acanthus that we're all used to seeing. It's the acanthus
Mollis. Yeah.
which is low, the central
Yeah.
flower spike.
It's a true herbaceous perennial.
Yes.
This is one of the shrubby forms that comes from Northeast Africa.
Firstly, my tiny mind is exploding. There's a shrubby form.
There's actually several. Most of the tropical and subtropical species tend to be shrubby, which includes one northern Australian species that in fact grows in mangrove swamps. So I doubt I'll ever have that in my national collection.
So, my goodness. First of all, so you hold the national collection of acanthus
Yes,
for Australia.
yes.
How many do you have?
I've got about 12 to 15, but that does include some selections and hybrids. The genus itself is only about 30 worldwide. There's a whole group of them. The main group of them, in fact, comes from around the Mediterranean basin. So that's where most of them grow, and they're mainly herbaceous ones.
Yeah.
And then you go into the African ones and our one Australian one, and they tend to be shrubby. They're a quite different group. One wonders whether, in fact, some taxonomists will come along in due course and say, oh, those shrubby ones, they should be in a genus of their own. So they may not be
As
acanthuses.
taxonomists are wont to do.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Australian one?
No, I haven't. So it is something on my bucket list
This
to
is
see.
something missing in your life.
Yeah, but I'll never grow it. I mean, unless I create a mangrove swamp in a greenhouse, that's about the only way I'll be able to grow it. But I'd like to see it one day.
Okay.
So
Next question then is, why acanthus? Why did you choose to build the National Acanthus Collection?
well, I'm part of the organisation called Plant Trust, which is
Yeah.
Australia's plant collection organisation.
We'll put the link below. And
Yeah.
are there similar organisations around the world?
There's certainly one in England which calls itself Plant Heritage,
Yep.
and it's probably the biggest and the oldest in the world.
Yeah.
And I believe there are other plant collection organisations in other parts of the world, but I have no real knowledge of them.
Right.
So hopefully somebody out there might tell us if there's one in America or whatever, which
Yeah.
would be good. And I'm actually president of the Australian branch, and I decided on acanthus because I think there are a genus of plants that are somewhat maligned.
Yes.
I have to say. Most people seem to spend their lives working out how to get rid of them.
Yeah.
They also are a small group, so
Yeah.
they're collectible in a moderate-sized garden.
Yeah.
And all of them, bar these subtropical ones, which are very borderline for me. I mean, the frost will knock them down if we get a bad winter. But all of the herbaceous ones are really good because they come from a Mediterranean climate,
Yeah.
which is, of course, similar to what we have here.
Yeah.
So all of the herbaceous ones grow really well. And they cope with our dry summers. They just die down if they get too dry, which is very convenient. So I thought I would collect them because I'm always there for the underdog.
The underdog.
Yeah.
We'll show the flowers because I was walking past and it literally stopped me in my tracks because the flower, the colour
Yeah.
is just out of this world.
Yeah, it's the most amazing shade, and I clash beautifully with it in this red top.
More South American than Northeast African. But
anyhow,
anyway, never mind.
doesn't matter.
Let's get back to its range. Its range is Northeast Africa, which you were saying is subtropical.
Yes, so you've got Ethiopia, Rwanda, Uganda, all those places.
Yeah.
I'm assuming from what research I've done that it comes from the hills, so it's not right down in the tropical parts of those countries, but it would be in areas where it wouldn't get frosts.
Right.
And apparently it makes vast thickets in the wild.
Ah, so it suckers, doesn't
Yes, it suckers all over the place. So if I don't want to sell a plant, the best way of doing that is to tell people it suckers or it has spikes. And this does both.
And it's a suckering spiky thing.
Yeah. But I think it has the most fabulous textural foliage. I love it for its foliage. Its flowers being late summer, autumn in there.
Time, because there's often not much going on.
Yeah, and it's very statuesque and very vertical in its form. And look, I rather control a plant than have to mollycoddle one.
But is it controllable? You know, some things run and go crazy. In terms of its suckering, do you manage it easily?
I don't find it difficult to manage, but of course all these things are comparative. I mean, some people find anything that doesn't stay exactly where they put it an issue.
An outrage.
Yeah, how dare that plant actually grow? I would not recommend this plant for people who are a little on the nervous Nelly side as far as horticulture is concerned.
Yeah.
But if you've got enough space for it and you're in a basically frost-free climate, it could make a fabulous structural plant in the garden.
Well, it does here. It is amazing. Sun?
It likes the sun, it's reasonably drought tolerant once it gets established, and in fact it will be a matter more, if you've got the right climate, of control than helping. Right. You know, so it's very easy to grow in the right conditions.
So sun and heat are not an issue, but the cold is. So it is frost sensitive.
It is frost sensitive. Mine, if we get a moderately heavy frost here, mine can actually get burnt to the ground, which means this following summer it will put a lot of effort into new growth from the root system because of its suckering habit, and it may or may not manage to actually get to the point of flowering that following autumn.
So a new growth won't necessarily flower in the same year that it's emerged?
No, I'm finding this year they're flowering quite well because we had very light frosts this last winter, so it kept a lot of woody structure on it, and therefore it's managed to flower really well. Having said all of that, and I know you're absolutely besotted by the flowers, and I love them too, but I would still grow this plant in my garden if I only had it for its amazing textural foliage.
As the catalpa, which you coppice only for its foliage, which is in another episode which I'll link below. So that's about using a plant for its structure and foliage, not necessarily the flower. Yeah.
So all of those acanthus haters out there, I'm terribly sorry we've pushed you into this, but
haters gonna hate.
Yeah, they will anyway. But I do like the idea of being able to expose people to different plants within a genus that they probably have a preconceived idea about.
So you've mentioned this before. One of the trees that we will be covering is that beautiful birch tree that you pointed out to me that you had planted for someone. And again, you made that point that everyone assumes a birch is the silver birch and that's it. But there are many different varieties.
Oh yeah, it's quite a large genus. And you know, acanthus is only a genus of some 30 odd species, but there's quite a lot of natural diversity within the genus, and as long as you're happy to deal with a plant that has a particular zest for life, I mean, in some difficult spot in the garden, wouldn't you prefer to have something that actually
It's reflective of
fills,
you, Stephen, and your zest for life.
Well, maybe it is, I don't know, but I do like plants that will grow in difficult conditions, do the job I want, and all I have to do is manage them in preference to mollycoddle. I think that's the most important aspect.
Okay, now the million-dollar question, which we ask all the time, how hard is it to come across? The answer is
almost impossible.
So, well done, viewers. This is something that you won't be able to find. No, that's not true.
It is in quite a few collections in Botanic Gardens. So I know I've seen it growing in the Sydney Botanic Gardens. I know it's growing in Warrnambool Botanic Gardens in Victoria because I supplied them with a plant. I'm sure Melbourne's got it. So if you want to see these plants, you can see them in botanical collections, but you won't often see them available for sale.
Now in Britain, as it's subtropical...
No, greenhouse only, or the orangery.
The orangery?
Yeah, and you can move it out for the summer.
Have you seen it in gardens or in collections in Britain?
No, I haven't seen it over there, but I don't see any reason why, because they do grow a lot of houseplants, why this wouldn't show up. And I might add, one thing we haven't yet done is give the full name of this plant. It just suddenly dawned on me. And that in itself is something of a conundrum, because I got this plant originally from someone and they said it was Acanthus montanus, meaning of the mountains. And
Acanthus
so that's what that's what I got it as. Then later on, after a little bit of research and things, I found it probably wasn't.
Is that how Montana, the state, got its name?
Yeah, because it's mountainous. Yeah, there
Oh,
you
God,
go.
I never realised that.
Yeah, this came to me as Montana.
Montana.
After my research, I decided that it wasn't, and therefore I think it is, or I thought it was, and I'm probably convinced it was pubescens, which means that it's slightly furry. But then on researching that, I find that those of the powers that be at Kew Botanic Gardens in England have put this one under the name of Polystachys. So Polystachys is probably what this acanthus is.
So it's Acanthus polystachys.
Yeah.
Poly means multiple.
Multiple, and stachys means sort of spikes like sheaths of wheat, and that's to do with the flower spikes before they come in flower, I'm assuming. So you've got this wheat-like spike of flowers.
That is a long bow in terms of looking like wheat. Just saying.
Taxonomists do that all the time.
They need to get out more.
Yeah, they probably do.
So in effect, you're not 100% sure what it is.
I could be corrected, and if there is anybody out there that has grown this acanthus and knows for certain what its name should be, we're going to stick with Polystachys at this stage, but if anybody can actually correct me, I'd be really pleased to hear from them.
Okay. Second question about range. In the United States, obviously there are parts of the US that are subtropical, so you'd imagine that it would be easy to grow in quite a few of the geographic areas of the United States. So
Yeah,
I wonder,
in the southern areas, yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably a thug in Florida.
I wonder, well, any American viewers out there, if you've come across this, love to know.
Yeah, well, we would, because, we're limited to our own knowledge and our own geographical area to a certain extent, and we often don't find out these things that are happening out there. So it'd be lovely to get a two-way street going.
Yes. Okay, well, congratulations on your national collection of acanthus, Mr. Ryan.
And yes, I now will probably have lots and lots of hate mail, but that's fine.
Oh, hate is going to hate, but this stopped me in my tracks. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it is the most extraordinary thing.
It is.
So, thanks for sharing, Mr. Ryan.
That's a pleasure.
What are we going to do next week?
Well, it'll probably be something seriously practical in the garden, I should think.
Seriously practical.
Or maybe some eye candy, I don't know.
Oh, who knows?
Yeah.
So what you'll need to do is subscribe. We post every week, and see what we're doing next week. Until then, Mr. Ryan, thank you.
A pleasure.
See you later.
Bye.